Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Show, where we interview real estate investing professionals from coast to coast, as well as the service providers that serve the real estate investing industry. Our goal is simple: share what's working now to help you improve and scale your business to the next level and meet the pros that can help you get there. Real Estate Pros is powered by Investor Fuel, America's leader in helping real estate investors and professionals build the business you need to live the life you've always dreamed of. Let's start today's show. Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Estate Pros Podcast. My name is Mike Stansbury. I have a very special guest, and he's on the East Coast, Mr. Adam Denney. Adam, how are you, sir?
I'm very well and busy these days.
Very well and busy today. Adam, thank you for being on the Real Estate Pros Podcast. But first, we got to pay the bills and let everybody know that Investor Fuel, the sponsor of this podcast, we help real estate investors, service providers, and real estate entrepreneurs 2 to 5x their businesses to allow them to build the businesses they've always wanted to and allow them to live the lives they've always dreamed of. Speaking of dreams, you live on the beach, Adam. Is that correct? On Myrtle Beach, Charleston, where are we at?
It is, yes. I don't live right on the beach, but I'm about 5 miles away, 10 minutes tops with traffic.
Okay, so is that a place that you go to a little bit to just kind of hang out by the beach a little bit since you're near it, or what's that look like?
Just a little bit, that dream of always living and going to the, you make all those plans and thoughts of, let's go on vacation over to the beach. When you live here, it's actually better than the plans, so.
That's awesome. Well, Adam, I'm always interested in this. Before we get into kind of what you're doing now in your market, tell me the origin story. Where was Adam before real estate, and what got you into the wonderful world of real estate investing and all the things that come with it?
Well, actually, Mike, it all started back in the day when I was probably in junior high and high school, and we had 3 TV channels, and I got tired of watching cartoons, and This Old House had started way back in the day. And as a kid, I watched it and I'm like, oh my God, I may have some kind of career or, connection connected to the real estate business. And how I got started, my first sales job was selling women's shoes in the mall in my teenage years while I was in high school. And I knew I wanted to get into the real estate business. And across from me, and where I was selling shoes back in the day, was a woman who worked for Century 21. And I got chatting with her. How do you get into the real estate business? She said, you take this 40-hour class, you find a broker to sponsor you, and you literally, get into the business. And I'm like, great. And this is 1985. So as a result, she said, go talk to my brokers. And I did. And these were people in their 60s at that point. And I said to them, I'm going to be graduating. But what they didn't know, when they assumed that I was in college, not in high school. And so they said the same thing. They said, if you can pass the test and, we'll sponsor you for your license. And I'll be damned if I didn't pass the test at 18 years old and a senior in high school. And started on my way in college part-time and selling real estate part-time. Way back in the day, banking and all the guidelines weren't that strict. And I remember to this day, Citibank had a mortgage. It was 10% down, 10% a year with a 10-year balloon and no doc. All the federal guidelines weren't there. But you could only buy 3 properties. And by the time I was, after I turned 19, I bought my first house at 19 years old. And lived in it. It was a 2-family, lived in it, rented out the rooms on the other side, and was making money on my first deal. 2 deals later, actually, I got into trouble. I wrote up the contract wrong. And my broker's like, you can't do this stuff anymore. I said, great. I think I've learned what I've learned from here. And I dropped my real estate license probably a year and a half later and just did investing.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
And then 87 came along. Reagan cut the capital gains rate or made it so real estate was an investment. The market changed. I got into marketing at that point because I wasn't old and mature enough to figure out, what do I do with this real estate? I didn't lose the properties. I just couldn't make any money on how to do them, being I didn't have the 10-10-10 financing. And then obviously back then the internet and finding out how you do creative financing and really real estate investing was far and few people to come by. Literally, I had to find people who were real estate investors and, how did you do this and how did you do that? And I just didn't come across them not having a license anymore. So I got into marketing. I literally met a guy and he was telling me about advertising. You're probably just a little bit younger than me, but back in the day, did you ever get the school folders with the advertisers on it?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, I met a guy that did that and he taught me how to do that. And I got into selling school folders for free, giving the students for free. And I had to learn door knocking and the selling. And he showed me a bunch of that. And I was just young and dumb. I didn't know, but I picked it up really well. Ended up hiring 2 people to doing it for me. But our niche back then, if you remember with Reagan, was just say no and don't do drugs. Well, our folders were printed, especially we had a license with the printer to print those. And we used to do what was called a drug awareness program that, teachers would offer and say, this is what they had, things that smell like marijuana that weren't, and these are the kinds of drugs. And so that was our pitch to schools, is that if you let us sell advertising on the folders, we'll give them to you for free and we'll tie it into a drug awareness program. And that went off pretty well. And I was on the road quite a bit. And then I used to go to small towns, real small towns, a couple thousand people. And so the school was the anchor for the community for the most part. And then after a year and a half or 2 years of doing this and doing pretty well, I'd made some money and had a brand new Corvette. And I was back home where I lived in upstate New York, actually. And this guy had a Lotus Esprit. And I'm like, how dare him? He parked out front. And he was in his 40s, and his parents, he was so good, and his parents' family was so good that they owned a swimming pool business selling swimming pools in upstate New York, which only has a summer of about 30 days.
Literally ice to Eskimos.
Yeah. And so they had sold it, and he had some money, and really this is where I honed or learned the skills that have made me truly successful to this day. Because this guy had bought in from a friend of his who had got emphysema. He had an advertising business that sold coupon advertising on grocery bags. And he had just taken it over. And he had brought on another guy before me that was a corporate executive on how to turn your business. And this is way before franchises were big and licenses, on how to duplicate your business and turn it into a franchise and how to license it. And, and how to have this McDonald's franchise so that you had a checklist and everything was identical. And, no matter where you did, it was the same. And I learned a tremendous amount from these 2 guys that taught me that end of it. And marketing and big business, which I had no experience other than selling advertising. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years. And I used to have 50 salespeople that worked for me. That was my job as the third partner in this business. I had the knowledge and the know-how and the ambition to hire and fire and train these people. And so that was my job, to go out every week, find out why they weren't producing, and from the good ones, what was working, and our sales presentation. And really a great aspect of why I'm successful today was from that business, because we were selling this for very expensive money. It was $1,000, $1,200 for bigger ads on the front of the bag, $300, $400 for the smaller ones around the sides of the bags. And how that bag business worked is you take 250,000 bags, and that was our pitch to the pizzeria or the hair salon or whatever. If I were to take your business card and drop it into 250,000 bags down at the Big M, would that get you any business? Well, we had just perfected it and honed it to the point. We'll put your business card or ad on the bag, and that's how we sold the advertising. Back then, credit cards had just came out, and we came up with the idea of to finance the ads. So now we went into a new business or a real small business in small towns. It wasn't a matter of, we would offer two prices. Here's our finance price, here's the cash price. And the close for the sale was pretty easily at that point. Most people were very interested in what we did. It was just a matter of the money. So Mike, how it would happen, we'd say, which price do you like and which one do you want to do? And like, well, could you do the cash price with financing? And that was always a yes.
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency. It's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
Because this was a commission-only business for our salespeople. And now we had offered a way in negotiating to let them feel good. We still made money. But I got tired of doing that. I was young. I had gotten married. I had a son or on the way or had a son at that point. My wife didn't want me to be on the road as much. I cashed out of that business, thank God, because paper bags went away a couple years later. And I'd moved to Atlanta, and I got back into the real estate business. But learning how to finance and pitch financing to business owners and door knocking really has made my business successful today, because those are the foundations or the basis of what I do in the real estate business that most other people don't. And it's not,
the skill the skill to talk to people and to do it at the amount of time and attention that you've had, the numbers, it just pays dividends, because again, the things they teach you in books are what they teach you in books, but you're out there actually utilizing those skills and learning. And I'm sure you may not have a master's in psychology, but you've probably been around enough people to know that there's different types of personalities and there's different ways that they're sold. And so you get to Atlanta, and then Atlanta begins hey, we're back in real estate investing. What did that look like?
Well, actually, I was doing the printing and marketing business in Atlanta, and it was a bigger city. It just never worked great in big cities. And actually, my wife did not like it. And this is another example in life on how you can turn bad things into good things. And my wife did not like it, packed up and took my son and moved back to New York, and literally left me with $16 in the bank. And so thank God I had my business, even though we weren't making much money. But I met my current wife, 27 years, actually, 30 years I think we've been together. And literally I had a couple dollars in the bank, and my wife was a recent graduate of pharmacy school and came to Atlanta because it was a hot place to go and someplace different. She had been to school and was from Pennsylvania, actually, not from where I was in New York. And, I was so broke back then. I'll never forget. My wife said, me and my partner in the printing and marketing business had rented this house, and we were going to live there. And I met my wife, and a couple months later, my wife even sold the house from out under me. It was in her name, trying to protect assets. And so I didn't get any money from that. And we were going to move in there. And my wife said, no, you're going to move in with me, and which I did. And then just an inspirational story. At that point, a couple months later, I was so broke, my car broke down. I had no car. And I helped my wife buy a brand new car, which her dad had co-signed for because she'd just taken up a job. And my wife had a job back then in 1997 making $100,000, which I think about today. I'm like, that was a lot of money. And so she was able to, finance me and believed in me at that point. And when my car broke down, I used to have to go and ask her. I say, hey, I don't have any gas money or lunch money. You think you could give me a couple dollars? And I told her my background, and I'd been successful and made some money. And she believed. She's like, how much money do you want? And she used to give me money to go to lunch. And I used to take her to work and take her car because she worked 12-hour shifts. So, but I told her, I said, listen, we'll we'll own the house within a year or so. And then from there, I'll make money in real estate. And we bought our first house, and I bought it on terms, owner financed. And I made, I don't know, I got a $50,000 line of credit from that. And then I told her when we bought the house, I said, we'll live in a mansion within a year or two. And I'll be damned, less than a year later, I ended up buying a 6,800 square foot mansion on 3 acres in the lake, owner financed.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
Needed a lot of work cosmetically, but we lived in some huge mansion, and I was only 32 years old, and she was like 27. And my wife's friends used to come like, "Oh my God, how do you afford to live in this?" But we got a great deal on it, but I owned that house when I'd moved to Atlanta. I lived there for 22 or 23 years. So.
Wow. Okay, so you stayed in that same house for that long, and
Yes.
Wow, that's
Well, it's hard
pretty
to
awesome.
replace it. Where are you going to get us?
Absolutely. And probably also you had a good, people don't realize this, and this is a skill set I can see that you hone this because if you're door knocking and talking to people. Owner financing is not somebody that people are very good at selling unless you know how to talk to people and know how to make the terms work for everybody. So that's really good. Kudos to you. And then you just it sounded like to me you had a vision for how your life was gonna head out, especially after you went through the valley of your wife leaving and your son leaving, and then all these things happened. So that leads up to now today. So how long have you been in this new market, and kind of what are you doing today to do? What's the deal flow like, and what kind of deals are you looking for in that market?
Well, actually, one of the reasons we came to Charleston is, as I was telling you before this, during the crash of '08, or actually back in 2004, I went to a class by a local real estate investor, and the class was this new concept called VRBO, or VRBO, the company. And they said, you need to buy property with, it's by a lake, or if you got a pool or some entertainment area or whatever. And so I hadn't mastered creative financing or subject to at that point, but I kind of knew how to do it. And so I went out, dumb as I was, being dumb has always been a benefit. Not knowing means that I have no limitations on what I can do. It's just what people tell me I can't do, and I don't really care what they say. And so I went out and bought 8 of these vacation properties, and they were actually making a profit. I had somebody that helped me run them, and they were on the North Georgia mountains, which is like an hour or 2 outside of Atlanta. And once I'd done that and figured that out, I bought, when the crash happened in '08, I'd lost most of my rental properties and some of the properties I'd owner financed. Actually, the only thing profitable for me was the vacation rental business. And so what I realized, you couldn't buy a house, because I was buying houses. I had funding and money to buy houses on the courthouse steps or take them over with creative financing. And I learned from Lou Brown. I was one of Lou Brown's first students back in 2003 or 4, back when he had no coaching. And this is what he offered. And then, that's why I'm successful, because back in the day, he had no coaching. When he took my $6,500, he said, thanks for the money. Here's your books and classes. And, and I will never forget when I bought that class, he offered it for the first time in LA. And I went out there, never been to LA, and took the class. And all I really wanted to know was how to fill out the contracts. And so it's a very intensive 3-day class, which I'm personal friends with Lou Brown to this day. We lived in Atlanta, not far from each other. And the class, even to this day, and I've taken that class 17 times now over the last 20 years, basically. He didn't offer any training or thought on how to fill out the contracts or forms. And I'll never forget, I sat there and he went over for about 10 minutes. I'm like, he's got to do it the last day or something. Well, he never did. And there was no coaching afterwards. You had no way to contact him, no questions or whatever. So I had an attorney who had helped me close all my transactions and the creative ones. And I told him, I said, do you think we'll be able to figure this out? And he said, great. Because I'll never forget, my wife had come into my office, and I was a millionaire from doing the real estate business. She said, did you waste money on another class or course?
Yes. Yes. I got to learn something new. Yeah.
And I'm like a BS, and I said, yeah, definitely. I'm going to make something out of it. So my attorney, Mark, and I figured it out, and I ended up buying 10 or 11 houses that first year. And at that point, word got out that I knew how to do this, and people used to come to me and say, how do you do this? And I'm like, well, I can't do it for free, but I'll do it for a consulting fee. And so I've been doing that ever since, and that's why we're talking.
That's great.
And after the crash happened, though, what had happened if you were, how long you been in the real estate business?
Since 2000, I've been a realtor since 2002 and an investor since 2008, like right after the crash. I got in under the wire.
Well, as you know, you couldn't buy a property and flip it. There were still undetermined values. It was, the only thing that made sense was creative financing.
Right.
And when I looked at my assets and my spreadsheets of what was making money, the only thing making money were my vacation properties. And this was still a new business. Airbnb hadn't even come close to coming out. But I was renting properties up in the North Georgia mountain. There was a shortage of hotels and properties and this kind of property, and they were still profitable. So I sat down, I said, I need to start buying these properties because, for one, price would not matter. I'm looking at cash flow from rentals. And my experience from having 53 vacation rentals is that they cash flow for usually 3 or 4 times what a renter would pay, and especially up in the North Georgia mountains. And so that literally is what happened. I went up to the North Georgia mountains, knocked on doors, put my name out there. Most of the deals I did were done over the phone. And this is a very important aspect. Back in the day after the crash, out of the 53 properties I bought, probably 50 of them, they gave them to me for free, or most paid me to take them because they were upside down.
I understand. Okay. So you were taking over a note or, yep. Okay. That makes sense.
Typically notes. Some are owner financing, depended on, you have to read the people. Some don't want you paying the mortgage and some do.
And these were some subject twos, but basically what you'd figured out based on your numbers is that if I could VRBO them or rent them out, because they were vacation rentals, and I'm assuming that these were mostly owner occupied houses before you got them.
No, these were all, actually, that was my criteria. I would drive to areas I wanted these properties, and I looked for the chipped paint, the growing grass, the kind of rundown cosmetic looking properties, and then skip trace them. And we would call them up. And, ironically, Mike, the thing I would hear a lot, which is still surprised me this day, is I was praying to God somebody would call me about, but I'm like, it was never for sale. I heard that so many times, that I was the salvation for their problem. And that's really what I am, as a problem solver for doing this business. And that's what people are willing to pay. I'm like, you don't have it for sale. Your market value is upside down. So you either have to come up with cash or, stop making the payment altogether. And I saved quite a few people from foreclosure as a result of that. So I'm like, if you're making it, and that's how I pitch. I'm like, so time on market 6 months, 10% to sell, you're upside down $70,000 or $80,000. If you can make the mortgage payment for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever, hand over title, I would sell off all the stuff inside and bring it to date, with redoing the property and rehabbing it and furnishing it with, what I knew would work for my experience. And then the great thing is they'd either paid me, a couple did, but most made the mortgage payment for anywhere from 6, 8, 9, 12 months for me. So I didn't have any expense except for the utilities, because they were going to make the payment anyways and lose money. So, which is the worst evil.
Yes, that is tough. Okay, that's very, very interesting. And then so you're consulting people now, and then you're in this market in Myrtle Beach and Charleston, and you're doing similar things there.
Well, how I ended up in Charleston in my real estate agent days, as all the training they offered. Some speaker consultant came in and said, listen, you could put a parachute on my back and put me on a plane and drop me over a town of, 100,000 people. And I guarantee without money or credit that I'll find some business or some business partner and I'll be making $100,000. And that always stuck in my mind. And so I'm like, well, let's go to Charleston. We don't know anybody. Let's see if I'm truly the person I think I am. At least I have money now, so that was way easier.
Right.
Starting with $10, and that's what I did, because we could have moved to the mountains. I own several. So the thing about my vacation property business I figured out is each year I go in by 5 or 6, and that way I have the same maid, the same maintenance guy, the same yard guy. And I live in Charleston now, instead of an hour or two from Atlanta, I find a sharp one of those people and I make them like the manager for that area. And so that keeps things kind of financially viable for me to pay for them and maintenance them, and especially when I'm not there. And then also too, the reason I don't have 53 anymore is when I had 8 or 10 or 12 in a certain year, I've sold off, knowing I was coming here, I've sold off as like a business, the vacation property business, and owner financed it to new buyers. So here's a ready in the box business with a cash flow and financing, and all you have to do is take it over. So it made it very appealing for me to find buyers. And I'm probably going to be unloading most of my other properties like that over the next 3 or 4 years, because I'm looking to gear down to retire.
Are those? This is just a side note. Are those most near in Georgia, North Georgia still, or?
Yeah, they're in Ellijay, Blue Ridge, Dahlonega, Helen, Hiawassee, and Highlands, North Carolina. And if you haven't been to the mountains of Georgia or North Carolina, Highlands is like the Beverly Hills of the mountains.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. I may offline. I have a buddy of mine, and we just did a deal in Helen, and there may be some interest there, maybe some synergy there. But you're back in this new market, and you're having fun in there. You dropped in a little more than $10, and so you're. Yeah. Tell me what are you doing today? Are you still using the same skill set?
Yes, and blindly I came over here, didn't care. My wife was not moving to the mountains of any area because she likes shopping and civilization. So we had picked Charleston after all the beach town. We'd spent a couple of years researching which beach town to be in, and really Charleston and Savannah are the only two open year-round with culture, airport, that kind of thing. And we ended up going with Charleston because we liked it, and it was on the coast, for Savannah, and the beach is not as nice in Savannah, and the city's way, further out from the coast. And so I came over with the full intention of my expertise, knowledge, and know-how of doing the vacation business, but it is very strict with permits. I never researched any of this. You have to have a permit, and just too many rules. And then the price point is super expensive over here. But most importantly, my vacation property rentals up in the mountains, we are booked 90 days out, 90% occupied. And I don't make as much money, but I sleep at night knowing that I don't have to worry about paying my bills. And so that's something we figured out over the last 20 years. Then in addition to that, the season is so short here. If you don't make your nut from Memorial Day to Labor Day, God help you, because you ain't buying property that you're going to rent out here for less than $1 million or more. So, to take over the mortgage payment and hope, and there's a lot of competition. So what had happened, Mike, and what I'm doing now is kind of a similar thing, but it's what I'm finding back after the crash, is that here in Charleston and Myrtle Beach, even more so, is there's a lot of upside down property. And what I mean by that is when COVID happened, and there's so many people moving here that the builders are building a lot of new houses. So due to COVID and the cost of materials, what they were 3 or 4 years ago, if you bought a house in the last 3 or 4 years, you paid way more money for it back then. And then the other problem with it is that builders now, with the prices of materials coming down, they're selling the same house for cheaper or lower than what you paid a couple of years ago. Plus, two, they have spiff money of 3 or 4%, which they can offer for you to buy this house. And then, the American dream, especially, I can't do this in the big ticket areas of Charleston, which is on the coast, and downtown Charleston, which is predominantly the price. This is more about 25 miles out in the Somerville, Goose Creek, Monk's Corners area. The average price of a house there is $400,000 to $500,000. And so there's a lot of houses, more than I could buy, or 10 people with my experience and knowledge and know-how could buy, where these houses are upside down. And, the same thing, divorce happens, job offers. There's a lot of military people here. There's a lot of young kids that go and get a VA loan with no money down and go to sell their house, and then 10% to sell, 6% in real estate commission, 3% in points and costs and negotiation. they're upside down to the tune of $50, $80, $100,000 in these houses. And so the new business I'm doing now, which I really like and prefer, is that. And the reason for that is I can buy these houses for $5,000 to $10,000 or less, and literally come in and take over the mortgage on a year or 2-year-old or 3-year-old house with no work, no rehabbing, nothing other than a sweep or some paint touch up. And then the great thing about that business is 90% of all the mortgages nationwide are still below 5% due to purchase and refinance. So I can take over, and here too, there's so many military, I can take over a VA loan with no PMI. So that's a savings of a couple $100 a month. So I can get a brand new house with a low interest rate and then turn it around and sell it to the same contractors that are driving by it to go build the new houses. So I've turned my business into a model where I make money 4 ways, and I have a pool of buyers which nobody can cater to. How I make my money is I get 10% down on these properties, which are almost brand new. So I have an unlimited amount of buyers who want to buy something like that. I make money on the down payment. My down payment requirements are typically 10%. I pay $5,000 to $10,000 on a $400,000-$500,000 house to take it over. And then there's a nice spread. I usually make a margin or a markup of about 5% on the loan that I take over versus what I put it back out on the street. And then I do, then I mark up my houses. When I ultimately sell these, I mark them up 10% usually above what the buyer paid back at the higher price, or, so, and I get 10% down. So I'm not taking advantage the value of what they put the 10% down. We're pretty close to what somebody had paid, and in a year or two, or when the market comes back, they should be equity wise in a pretty good position. So when I mark it up, I just did a deal. The woman paid $450 for the house, put $50,000 down, so she owed $400. Did not like it here. Went to rent it. The increase in taxes and insurance made her upside down monthly on the rental payment, let alone maintenance, and if they paid the whole time. Came back, thought she was going to live here, did not like it, and she was a referral. And so she ended up owing $388, and she wanted $12,000, and I wasn't going to lose a deal over $2,000. It was about $2,000 more than I like to pay. But it was a 2-year-old house, 2,700 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, $20,000 in upgrades that she'd put into it. And so I ended up giving her $12,000, and she had a 3.75% loan. And I turned them around and sold it in less than 10 days. And I sold it for $480, $48,000 down plus the closing costs. So I made money on the down payment, about $800 a month spread on the upcharge on what I charged in the interest rate. And then I made money on the back end. And the fourth way I make money is I do all my deals interest only. And the reason for that is the payment's more affordable for buyers and opens it up. And my typical rate is between 8 and 9%. I don't charge any less than 8. I don't typically charge more than 9. It's more of a feel for what I think you can afford. And then when I do my deals interest only, there's a special loophole in the tax law. The profits I make off of that transaction make it so my rate on taxes is my adjusted or regular tax rate, not the capital gains rate. And then
Interesting,
also,
yeah.
Well, and then also, too, the fourth way I make money, being interest only, you still owe me that balance no matter what of whatever the mortgage is for. Well, the loan I take over is amortized and declining, and at 3 or 4%, typically that's a net profit in my pocket, buying down the mortgage amount of $6,000 to $8,000 a year. And so that's and the great thing is I got out of the rental business about 15 years. That was the worst part of my life, was being in the landlord in the rental business. I'm just a bank. You're not suing me. You're not calling me. Literally my hassles and frustrations and all my checklists of what I did not like about the real estate business have disappeared.
Yes, when you're the bank. Yes, beautiful. What a great road of, hey, here's where I started, here's where I was in the middle, and here's where I'm at the end. And it's where I think most real estate investors want to get to the point where they are the bank. They are lending money, and they're not having to deal with toilets and tenants and all those fun things. Very, I love the story. Adam, where can people reach out to you at? Are you on the socials media? How do people reach out to you if they wanted to get in touch with you in your market?
Well, saying that, Mike, here in Charleston, and actually I have people that visit me. I've done these podcasts for Lou Brown's group, his real estate groups. I speak to his classes as an advanced student. Obviously, my net worth and portfolio is larger than most people's. And then my niche of door knocking. And what I told you, if you went out, and what I try to tell people is, this is the creative and subject to it is very complicated and hard to figure out. But if and so typically what I do here in Charleston, the deal, everyone, what's the easiest way to make money in the real estate business? So I send a lot of people to Lou Brown's class to take the Millionaire Jumpstart or the foundation class. And if they take that and come back here and want to work with me, I'll teach them how to door knock and the scripts and the flyers that we use and what to say and what not to say, and just set an appointment and then call me. And then, at that point, if you want to keep the deal, then you pay me a consulting fee. If you don't want it, it's actually an excellent lead way for me to generate leads or deals, because if you don't have the confidence or the money to do the deal, I will pay you for the deal as opposed to nothing, and take over the deal myself if it's a viable transaction.
Awesome. That's great.
Yes, you can reach me. We're on Facebook. My company is DentCorp Investors, our main company, and that's on Facebook. And as well, do you give out telephone numbers or?
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes as well.
Sure.
Yeah, dencorpinvestors@gmail.com, and then 843-926-3711 is how you can reach Adam. Adam, thank you for being a part of the Real Estate Pros podcast. Folks, thanks for watching. If you want to get in touch with Adam, we just gave you the information. It'll be down in the show notes. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for today's Real Estate Pros show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing for your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. If you're interested in joining us as a guest of this show, please visit investorfuel.com/pros to apply. You can also check the show notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.